This is a story about two men who were neighbors. Their names were Todd and Jeremy. They both went to work early each day during the week, but they didn't really know each other. One Friday morning, Jeremy accidentally backed his car into Todd's rubbish bin, spilling all the garbage. Jeremy didn't worry about picking it up as he was running late, and Todd always put the bin too close to his driveway. It might just teach him a lesson about moving his bin somewhere else. Todd came outside just in time to see Jeremy drive off. He was not happy because he had to pick up the rubbish from his lawn. After Todd put the bin back beside the road, he kicked over Jeremy's letterbox, which was old and wobbly anyway. He deserved that for spilling all that garbage and denting his bin. When Jeremy got home, he found a note from someone saying that she had seen Todd kick Jeremy's letterbox after putting the bin near it. When Todd got home, he saw Jeremy's letterbox still fallen on its side, and he felt a little bit guilty. The next day, Jeremy woke up early, knowing what he would do to get back at Todd for damaging his letterbox. He got his whipper snipper and trimmed his edges, making sure to make lots of noise near Todd's bedroom window so he couldn't sleep in. Then Jeremy kept cutting past his fence and purposely cut the new flowers that Todd had planted just last Sunday. Todd couldn't sleep in as he liked to on Saturday mornings because of all the noise his neighbor was making. So he got up and got ready to go to church. After the whippersnipper had stopped its noisy work, Todd went to open the window for some fresh air and saw all the destroyed flowers on his front lawn. He knew just exactly who had done it. Jeremy had woken him up early and killed his plants. Todd began to think of what he could do to Jeremy to repay this malicious act. Then he went to church. At church, Todd could barely concentrate on what the speaker was saying because he was so angry with Jeremy. But then he heard these words, read from the front by one of the kids. She said, "The law is made complete in this one command. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you go on hurting each other and tearing each other apart, be careful. You will completely destroy each other." Todd imagines what might happen if he gets revenge on Jeremy, and the continuous bad effects until both their houses are ruined. When Todd wakes up the next morning, he drives off nice and early to the store and brings back something for his plan to repay the wrongs that have been done. While Jeremy is eating his breakfast, he hears someone out in his front yard. It sounds like they're digging. Oh no! He rushes out ready to start a fight, and he is sure it is Todd getting revenge for the flower incident. But to his surprise, Todd is by his letterbox and he's fixing it. Todd looks up and sees Jeremy standing there confused. He apologizes for knocking over the letterbox and explains that he has now fixed it so that it is no longer wobbly either. Todd continues by saying that he will also move his bin to the other side of his driveway on bin days as he now realizes it was obviously too close to Jeremy's driveway. Jeremy thanks Todd, then admits he has done something wrong too and apologizes for the damage to Todd's flowers. Todd forgives Jeremy, and Jeremy gives a great big smile. Because Todd chose to do what God suggested and not what his own thoughts were tempting him to do, he had created a friendship with his neighbor instead of making Jeremy an enemy. The next day, Todd leaves for work, admiring his freshly planted flowers in his garden. He smiles because the wisdom he heard from a little girl at church had made his life better. We are free to choose what to do, and God suggests we choose to love each other. Galatians 5, verse 13 to 15. My brothers, God called you to be free, but do not use your freedom as an excuse to do the things that please your sinful self. Serve each other with love. The whole law is made complete in this one command: love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you go on hurting each other and tearing each other apart, be careful, you will completely destroy each other.
Hey there, I want to welcome you today to the Adventist Church Online Network broadcast. And today it's really exciting because we're talking about all things kids, especially kids 10 and under. And I definitely have a child in that age range. He's 4. So I'm really excited to talk to the guests that we have today because we're going to talk about how we can create space for meaningful conversations and connections with children. Now, we know that Adventist Church Online Network is all about talking about how our churches can do things, especially in the online space. We understand people are doing things online and offline. We have parents, we have teachers, youth leaders who are wondering, how do we engage kids? And what do we do when it comes to using technology? Are we just plopping our kids in front of it? Are we figuring out ways to use it and to engage with it? So this is what we're talking about today. We're really digging deep into how we can create space for these meaningful conversations. And the couple that made that video that you just watched, we're going to get to talk to them later in today's show. But first, I would love to invite a family on that has been doing some really interesting and creative things around creating space for children to have meaningful conversations. And I'd love to welcome them on the broadcast. We have, welcome to the broadcast, Val family.
Hey!
Hello, kia ora,
wow.
talofa.
This is a little bit more than I was anticipating. Who's that there?
My name is Maranatha.
And my name's Tuffa.
Is that Tough? Is that you? Like, are you hiding there, or?
This is me. Yeah.
This is the real you.
Oh no, it's not.
Well, I want to know a little bit more. I know you all were creating some cell groups and small groups for kids, especially during lockdown. And I thought that was a really interesting idea because I think as adults, we're used to having small groups, where we're meeting together. But how does that work? Because I know you were doing it with kids as young as 5 years old. How do you keep kids at 5 years old engaged in a small group online?
Well, first, our cell group, we recognised the need in our second lockdown. The first lockdown, our cell group, as adults, we had something going and we recognised that the children didn't have anything on, but they were already familiar with Zoom because they were doing it from school. So we opened up a kids cell group.
Yeah, and from here, I was able to take over the 5 to 9 year olds, and what a blessing that was because I used this app called Snap Camera, and it could change what I look like. So I'll just run a few here, and I could change it to the character of who we were trying to tell the story about. The first couple of lessons were about Esau, and we used some of these apps to act out like Abraham or Isaac. And it's just a great space, and it keeps them engaged. These kids, they loved seeing the different costume changes, and sometimes we'll throw something in there that they're familiar with, like maybe Woody. They love it. They jump out of their skin for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm engaged because I'm having a hard time taking you seriously. So I'm wondering if the kids. But I'm sure that when you're telling the story of the characters, like if you're like showing them the character, like the character's right there in front of them, talking to them, it probably brings everything to life for them.
Yeah, exactly. And for the mustache one, every time this comes up, they go, "Oh, what's Isaac gonna say?" And then we follow through, and then we start reading the Bible. And the ICB version, which is the International Children's Bible, it's great for the kids to read. It's another great resource online for to get the kids reading. So it's really good.
So you're not just talking to the kids; like you're finding that they're engaging in the conversation and they're talking back with you.
Absolutely, yeah. We ask them open-ended questions. A lot of them, the studies we've been working with is how do you work within your family. So you ask them questions about, well, what would you do different within your family? How would you treat your brother, your sister? And they would open up to us and share. There's a lot of good sharing, very deep sharing, a lot of challenges. Today's challenge was to write some waves and if you can see that.
A little bit closer to the camera. What's that?
It's a wave in a boat. That's when Peter was walking on water. And they're supposed to draw it in their hands. And if anybody asks, what is that? They can start sharing that with their friends and family.
Okay. So are kids a little bit deeper than we think? Because maybe we just, think they talk about quite frivolous stuff. But like, as you're talking, it makes me think kids they have something really deep to share with us.
Absolutely. They absolutely do. Yeah, some of the stuff they say, it blows me away.
Like, can you give us an example?
Yeah, out of the mouths of babes and suckers, we see God's strength. And it's we learn more, I think, from the children than they learn from us. You just be amazed at what they come up with. Because we're thinking one way as a parent and as a facilitator, but the children are just seeing it for what it is. There's no overthinking the gospel or trying to put it into a sermon. They just say it's on their minds.
I guess I'm wondering if there are parents or youth leaders watching, what advice would you give them to really engage kids? Because obviously, you got it down with these characters. Like I want to know what you're going to say next. I want to know what Isaac's going to say. So what advice, Isaac, please share your wisdom with us. What advice would you give to youth leaders and parents who are really trying to create a space for these meaningful conversations with kids, whether it's online or offline?
And say it with the voice.
No.
Give us the voice. We want the voice.
It's just about being prepared. I think you read your story, you start picking what costumes you're going to use. And the great thing is you can get feedback from the kids because my daughter's in it and she'll say, "Dad, that was terrible. I want you to do this better. Can you change the colors so the kids can read the colors?" It's some really good information from the kids that we get for feedback. But yeah, I'm not going to know voices today.
And also, Rachel, the setting that we use is because we serve at Calvary Community Church and their main ministry is cell ministry. So we run it like a cell, but just online with apps.
So can you explain a little bit more? Like when you're saying you run it like a cell, like how does that work and how does it work for kids?
So it's quite intimate. It's we've had 3 children up to 14 online. Jump online when they come online. We welcome them. We pray, and then the text we read, we put on PowerPoint. We share our screen, and they read it straight from the Bible. And I think in the churches you rarely see that because it's from the Sabbath school lessons. But we encourage them to read it straight from the Bible. So we read, say, a chapter. And then we break it down and ask them, what do they think this means? How does this relate to your life? And how can we use this to get a stronger relationship with Jesus? And they answer those questions.
Wow.
It's amazing. We are really humbled that we have this opportunity to learn from the children.
And I know that you split it into two groups. So you had one that was 5 to 9, and you had another one, was it 10 to 13 or
10 to 15.
10 to 15?
So that's called the Power Cell, and it's the same setting. It's not as exciting with all these apps, but we do things like playing Kahoots while we're on the Zoom, and just having little icebreakers. We met for the first time for our outing last week and went out bowling.
Wow.
So it's really establishing good relationships, but also a great safe space for those meaningful conversations.
This is great. Yeah, I'm really inspired, and I think it's probably going to give a lot of people ideas on things that they can do, especially around that idea of cell groups. I know I was reading research this past week that said when kids are talked to about spiritual things, they don't engage as much as when they're actually able to be part of that conversation. So yeah, I think you all are really creating that space for kids to be part of these conversations. So keep doing what you're doing and stay encouraged in what you're doing as well.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the broadcast today.
No worries.
See ya.
Bye.
Well, another opportunity that we've had recently to hear about people who are creating space for these conversations is from Jochebed, who is actually the children's ministry director in the Papua New Guinea Union Mission. And you're going to find that the connection is a little bit, the speed of the connection, the video that we have is a little bit blurry, but the content of what she shares and the way that they're engaging kids is very inspiring. I think you'll find it to be inspiring as well, and give you some ideas as a youth leader or parent on how you can continue to create these spaces for meaningful conversations with your children. Today, I'm so excited to be able to talk to Jochebed Pomaleo, who is the Director of Children's Ministry in the Papua New Guinea Union Mission. Welcome to the Adventist Church Online Network broadcast.
Thank you, Rachel.
So can you tell us a little bit about the responsibility you have there? What age kids are you working with? What's involved in your job?
Thank you, Rachel. I work in the country as I'm working in the country as a children ministry director in the country, and I make sure that the children between the ages of 0 to 14 are spiritually nurtured in the home and in church and at school. And the focus training for the country is to base on creating meaningful relationship with God and with our children. Those two are the most important thing that I see in life: our relationship with God and our relationship with our children. So as leaders, we conduct training and provide resources for leaders to connect children with God and with the families. What I do, and to connect our children with God.
So I know one of the resources that you've created to help with these connections is actually a bookmark. And from what I understand, it's inspired by this Peter Roenfeld book, Following Jesus. And inside, usually there's a bookmark. And what you've done is you've made your own bookmark that helps leaders and parents to be able to dig into the Bible deeper with children and start asking questions and creating conversations around that.
Yeah, thank you. I saw what Peter Roenfeld, the little bookmark that Peter Roenfeld has, and I sat down to look at it again, and how can I come up with something that will fit into our setting, that the children will love to take part and will be, want to own it. And I come up with this little bookmark that has 9 questions, and with it, and I'm going to just read quickly those 9 questions that I come up with. It's all about when you're reading a passage that you have to ask some questions, and the way that I said it, that you have to ask a lot of questions, and the children has to find their own answers, and they have to tell you the answer. So they do a lot of thinking. You just have to ask questions as a leader. And the question as you're reading a passage is, you have to find out the key players. You have to find out the key. You have to tell the children to give you the key players, the key location that the story taking place, and what you don't understand in the story, and you have to find out about the main activity of the story, and then you have to find out what is the main focus of the story, and then what did you learn from the story, and how can you apply what you learned, and what is your aim in the future. So those are the 9 key questions that the children will have to discover as the leader is asking questions. It's a lot of interacting with the leader and a child, and yeah, the children will enjoy those steps as they go through.
I'm really enjoying what you're saying about, the conversation that's happening, because that's what the focus is on today's show. Is we're talking about how do we create space for meaningful conversations with children. And from this bookmark, it's interactive. The kids are giving answers to questions that the leaders are asking. Is this different from maybe an approach that has been used in the past, or is this, kind of typical?
It has not been used. This is the first time that we come up with, like, I have to come up, I think, and when I introduced this, the kind of a new thing to most of them. But yeah, it's kind of a new thing. And they're enjoying it, yeah. And I would say, this is that I've been doing it and selling the idea to all the churches, and the churches are finding it that when it comes to worship services and devotions, this is more effective, and the people are spirit filled when they do their own search and they are thinking. So it's something new, yeah.
And then for the
And it
kids,
has been
go ahead.
and it has been approved in this meeting that XCOM has approved that it will go into a series of studies for the next 5 years to touch the children.
So
And this
what
is
do you
really
see?
connecting children.
What do you see as the difference when the children are actually involved in that process of digging and asking for themselves versus when, the teacher is maybe up front and just teaching and the children are just silent?
There is a great difference from where I used to, this is my 30 years of service in this ministry, and I am passionate about children and how they do things and how we connect them with certain things that they do. I found out that the children are more excited, and they are like, they don't care who is around as long as they're giving their answers. They don't even care about the adults that are around. They don't, they just give the answers sharp and bold, and they are not scared of anything. That's what I found out the first time that it was during our divine service that I applied this technique. And during divine service, people are not talking. They were just using their ears. As we did this, everybody and the children, because I allowed the children to give the ideas, and all the children were talking, and the adults were trying to come in, and I have to control everybody because everybody wants to give their answer. Yeah, it's a very exciting journey in going
Well,
into this effective study.
we're really excited about what you're doing in this space, and hopefully inspires other people, even parents, to be able to feel like they can actually have those spiritual conversations with their kids and dig a little bit deeper into the Bible by asking some of these questions. So thank you for what you're doing there in PNG.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Just one thing you said about family. When there's some inputs that I took from the family, the other families that they've tried this, they said that the children are looking forward for our worship every afternoon because they know that they're gonna ask questions and they will answer and they will dig deeper into the Word of God.
Well, that's exciting for parents to know that the kids are the ones going forward and wanting to have that worship service. And I think if we just start asking more questions and giving space to listen to kids, we might be surprised at, what's inside of them.
That's correct, Rachel. Yeah.
Well, again, I want to thank you.
I'm always very impressed.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm always very impressed of the way they respond and the way they give the answer. And this is the way forward that I want everyone to follow.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the broadcast today. And I know that you've shared this resource. So if other people want to use it or see how they can use these questions, it's available for them as well. So thank you again for being on the broadcast today.
You're most welcome, Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you. I loved actually talking with Jacobed because of this resource that she created, this bookmark. It has these questions, makes it really interactive. When you're reading the Bible, she said the kids, similarly to the Fidel family, I guess we're seeing a bit of a pattern here. They're having the kids actually read the Bible for themselves and dig deeper and start asking questions and make the book come alive. Ask questions about what's happening in the story. What are the characters doing? What's the impact on our lives? And it makes me more excited to go back and read the Bible with my son as well to see how we can go a little bit deeper and just continue to create those spaces for kids to be able to have these meaningful conversations. Well, right now we're going to pop on another Lego video for you, but after that, we're going to talk to the couple who actually has been creating these videos and see what the impact has been for them at their local church and with children in their church, and how these videos with Legos have been creating space for kids to have meaningful conversations about themselves, about their families, and about their relationships with Jesus.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to our Bible story time. My name is Helene. Can you tell me who are the people you love? Is it your mommy and daddy? Or is it your friends? Or is it your grandparents? How do you show your love to them? Do you give them gifts on their birthday? Or do you send them food or cards or flowers when they're sick? Well, I'm going to tell you a story about how God shows his love to us. It's called For God So Loved the World. And the story goes like this. One night, Jesus and his disciples went to the Garden of Gethsemane. He needed to talk to his heavenly Father. Jesus prayed because he knew it was soon time for him to die. Jesus was going to take the punishment for all the wrong things anybody had ever done or would ever do. While Jesus was praying, his disciples fell asleep. They must be very tired. Suddenly, Jesus heard footsteps coming. Jesus went to his disciples and said, "Wake up! Now is the time. They are coming to get me." Peter, who was one of Jesus' disciples, jumped up. He grabbed a sword and tried to protect Jesus from the guards who came to get him. He cut off a guard's ear. What do you think Jesus did? Jesus touched the guard and healed his ear, saying, "Peter, this is not the right thing to do." Jesus was letting them arrest him, even though he had never done anything wrong. Jesus' disciples ran away and hid. They didn't want to be seen by the guards. They were scared. The guards took Jesus and they brought him to the city. They brought him to the leaders who wanted to kill Jesus. Pilate was the leader who looked after the city. Pilate said to Jesus, "Are you the king of Jews?" And Jesus said, "You have said so." Then Pilate said to the crowd, "I didn't find that he has done anything wrong." But many others in the city also wanted Jesus to die. They called out, "Kill him! Kill him! Put him on a cross! We want you to crucify Jesus!" So Pilate decided to follow what the people wanted. But it was okay. This was all part of God's plan. This is the reason that I was born into the world. Jesus said. The guards made Jesus carry a big cross up a hill to where they would put him on the cross. When they came to the place called the skull, they put him on the cross and hurt him. Jesus said, God, forgive them, because they don't understand what they are doing. Jesus could have saved himself, but he knew he had to die to save everybody else, so he stayed on the cross. Jesus' love for us kept Jesus on the cross. It wasn't the guards keeping him there. It was now about noon. Suddenly, it became dark over the whole land. The sun stopped shining and the ground shook. God was angry with sin and what it had done to the world. The sin that was killing his son, Jesus. Jesus shouted, "It is finished." Then Jesus died and rescued the whole world. Some of Jesus' friends took his body and wrapped him up with strips of linen, then placed him in a tomb cut in a rock. It was preparation day, and Sabbath was about to begin. Some guards blocked the entrance and stood outside to make sure nobody could get in or out. Jesus' friends were very, very sad that he had died. But they had forgotten that Jesus had said he would see them again soon. And that's the end of our story today. We will have the rest of the story next time. Isn't it wonderful that Jesus died for us? And that's how he shows us his love. So let's show our love to others by being kind and taking care of other people you love. Make them smile or pray for them. See you next time.
I know that I've really enjoyed Ben and Lynn's ministry as they've been using Legos to help minister to children. And it was intended that they just use that for the church service, but it actually ended up that they used that just for Sabbath school, but it ended up that it being shown in the larger church service. And they share in an interview with us that parents were calling their kids saying, "Hey kids, look, there's Legos on at church today." And kids were jumping out of bed to be able to watch the Legos on TV, on the screen. And it was just a different perspective on the story. And I know even this past Easter, I thought, oh, maybe my son's a little bit too young to talk about the story of Jesus dying on the cross. But after he had watched it, in different times, he wrote on a piece of paper, he put, "Jesus died on the cross." And I had prayed about it. And I realized our kids are ready and willing for us to have conversations with them. And we have to not discount their ability to engage in these conversations. So I'm glad that Ben and Lynn are creating spaces like this where we can use them as a platform, as a launching pad for conversation. We're going to have a quick chat with them, a pre-recorded chat that I had with them, where they talk a little bit about what they're doing with the ministry and why they're doing it and how it's helped kids to find space for these meaningful conversations we've been talking about today. Today, I want to welcome Ben and Herlin Felberg to our Adventist Church Online Network broadcast. I'm really excited because not only are they doing really amazing things with Legos and with puppets and really just ministering to children, I also consider them to be friends. So welcome to Adventist Church Online Network, Ben and Lynn.
Hey.
So everyone has, at least at our church at Kellyville, has, really loved the videos that you all put out. I know you've done some with puppets, you've done some with Legos. We got to see some earlier in the broadcast. What gave you the idea to start using Legos to tell Bible stories?
Oh, we needed to do it for our Sabbath school at church, and we have plenty of Lego. So Lynn suggested, why don't you use it for the Bible story when we do it online?
So you were invited to tell some stories for kids during the Sabbath school program. And then, Lynn, was that your idea or Ben's idea?
Oh, well, that was my idea because I remember when months ago we bought a lot of Legos and I said, never used them. So when he asked me, so what do you think? What are you gonna do for the Sabbath school this time? Because we are thinking we can't just read a book in front of the kids, but when we read just a book like on a Zoom meeting, the kids may not pay attention. So we were thinking of what is something that can keep the kids to stay focused on the story.
Yeah, they need to sit there
So yeah,
in their own homes and watch.
Yeah, so
the
that's why I
screen,
suggested
so.
Ben. I said, "Oh, you bought all of this Lego. Why don't you use it?" Yeah, so that's how I started.
Like a good wife, like, hey, use all those Legos that you bought. I mean, but you guys say it really casually, but what you put together is, professional grade. You have the scenes going on, you have like all the characters in there. What was the reaction of the kids at the church? Because kids can be really tough critics.
I think the kids liked it. The parents liked it. The older kids, I think, were inspired to do their own Lego stories a bit.
What age do you think they were, the ones who really got inspired?
Probably school, primary school, maybe lower high school, but yeah, primary school sort of age, I'd say.
But I remember one of the comment that we had on Facebook when they put it they put it online on the church. We didn't make it for the church. We only made it for the Sabbath school, but then they put it on the church program. And then I remember I read one of the comment. I can't remember who it was, but one of the moms said, "Wow, when it started, I said to my kid, it's Lego in church." And then they jumped out of the bed, and then we watched the program straight away.
I heard all the kids were excited to come and watch it.
So it really got the kids kind of engaged in like, what's the church doing? It's not just someone like up front talking, but it's like pulling them into something that they're really interested in to tell the Bible stories.
Yeah.
And then you said some of them actually went and created their own scenes as well. Like they went back to tell stories using Legos because they were inspired by what you all did.
Yeah, there was a girl we went camping with, and she showed us what she did with the Jesus with the woman at the well. She did that, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I never met her before, but she came with us to a camp or with her parents, and then she came to me and said, "Oh, I want to show you something. I really want to show you something." And I said, "Oh, what is it?" And then her parents said, "Oh, she made we know you made your Lego story." So she made her own Lego story, and she came to me and showed this story that she made, and she was so excited, and she's thinking of making more even, and she already put that story in the church, and everyone watched it.
Wow.
At the church, yeah.
So I think it's awesome because, today's show is all about how we create space for meaningful conversations for children. So like as a church, and I guess this can inspire other churches to think about this as being a way to create space in the church service or in the Sabbath school class to create those conversations. I know you have a son as well. He's 4 years old, right?
Yep.
So what does he think about the whole Lego project and you all telling these stories? Is he involved? Is he like, what does he think about it all?
He likes to hang around and put things ask us if he can put his little creations into, or his cars into the scene, for example.
He's trying to put a car into the Jesus story.
Yeah. No, maybe not the Jesus story. Maybe I think we draw the line.
Oh, please don't practice one, and then we'll try not to. But then after, oh, are you done? Can I play this one now? Can I?
Yeah.
Well, there was
You're
a
all
scene
playing
that
with
he
it and
helped.
just throwing
There
it
was a scene that
afterwards.
he helped a little bit. And Jelly, this time after this one, there is a scene that there is gonna be an earthquake, and then you have to help, like shake the table, shake the table.
Bang the
Yeah,
table,
so
Jake.
he helped. Well,
So what?
help.
Well, what advice would you give to a church if they were really trying to? Because obviously you guys are quite creative. I know Ben that you're a photographer. I'm sure you do some other stuff. Lynn, you're a musician. So, what advice would you give to a church and even to parents who are trying to create, some different creative spaces for kids so they can get involved and be part of the conversation?
I think then it's good having like a kids like they had the kids story in church, and if having a kids segment, which our Kellyville is doing it now at the moment, and if it's something that the kids enjoy, they want to be there and they ask about it. But if you can give, even if you aren't creative in your church, but there's a bunch of young kids out there who want to have a go, getting them to do things also gets them thinking about those stories, and as well as them creating a space for them to talk with what they're doing with their parents, etc.
Yeah, and I guess try. You can ask the kids like, what do you think is something that is interesting? What would you like to see in a like how if you want to make a story, how do you want to tell it to someone else? And they might tell you, oh, can I use this? Like Jedediah, like our son, he likes asking us, oh, can I use this? Can I put this one? He wants to contribute to the process, even though we can't. Don't just say, oh, no, 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 no. Give them a little space, like even just one little thing, and it will make them wonder, oh, I helped mom and dad to do that. Oh, I helped them to do that. So they have a little bit of a proud of themselves, like one day they can do it too.
Yeah. Well, we love what you guys are doing, and you've inspired obviously the kids at your church, and I'm sure you're inspiring people as well on our broadcast. So I just want to thank you for being here with us today, and yeah, keep creating. We can't wait to see what else you guys are going to create.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And don't forget to make something good for the kids.
Yeah. I know that I was very inspired by Ben and Lynn and what they're doing with their ministry. They're very passionate about it. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but we've kind of seen a theme here between the Fidel family and here the Felbergs. And they're actually saying when I asked them, what's your advice for what churches want to do? They said, ask the kids, So maybe we need to put more emphasis on actually asking kids what they want. The Fidel family said their kids were very honest about the background and the setting. And then we saw for the Felbergs that they were saying, ask the kids what they want to create. So maybe that's the answer, is that we need to ask the kids more about what they want and what it is they want to create. Now, the next guest that we have, I'm quite excited about because my son has been named by the Chewies as probably their most avid fan. He watches the show. I make sure to comment on all their social media to let them know when one of the episodes is out that he really enjoys. So we're going to see a little clip about the Chewies just to get you familiar with it if you're not familiar. And then we're going to talk with some of the people behind the scenes to see what the Chewies are all about and how we can use something like this as a resource to create space for meaningful conversations with our children.
In the South Pacific Division is creating the TUI animated series with mums and dads in mind. It is a resource to equip, empower and assist parents as they endeavour to be the primary spiritual mentors of their children. As you follow this Pacific Island family dealing with the challenges of life, it will give you a new and fresh view of the love of God.
Come in. You all right, boy? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Just need some space, eh?
It's not rocket science, just a few basic steps to help you connect as a family. With resources that contain a range of questions, activity sheets and songs with key messages, the TUI animated series makes it easy to talk about the hard stuff with your kids. It is designed to cover the 28 fundamental beliefs of the SDA Church as you've never seen them before, helping you create a love for the Word of God in your family. Available soon to your device, a tool to help you disciple your child.
Well, I'm excited now to welcome Litiana as well as Alex Manners to the show so that we can talk a little bit more about the TUIs and talk about, how we're using this to create, spaces for these meaningful conversations. So welcome all to the show.
Thank you.
And we have a surprise guest as well.
That's it.
How are you doing? How's everyone?
We're good.
Yeah. So I'm really excited because my son is actually a big fan of the TUIs. He loves the TUIs, and I probably should have brought him here to let him do this interview. I just want to know a little bit more, if you all can share with me, around what was the inspiration for the TUIs. We just got to see a little snippet there, so if you want to see more, you can head over to the TUIs.tv to actually watch it. But what was the inspiration for it?
When I got into my role about 5 years ago, the TUIs was the inspiration really came about because I loved the stuff that we had, the resource we had for kids, but I wanted something where mums and dads could be involved with their kids and something that kids enjoyed watching, which was basically a cartoon. And I wanted to actually have a cartoon that actually heroed an ethnic family, so like a Pacific Island family. So that's why we called it the TUIs, because the word Tui actually means a king. And so this is the stories of the children of the king. And so, so the inspiration was we wanted the 28 fundamentals to be done in a way so that mums and dads could talk about it. When they watch the video, it doesn't actually say this is this fundamental. It actually is just a story about life, about things that are happening in everyday life for a typical family. And then it's unpacked through the conversations that mums and dads have with their children.
Yeah, so for me, it's like I don't know where to start 28 fundamentals, so it just helps me talk to him about that. So, yeah, easily.
I know you mentioned about heroing the parents, and, can you just explain that a little bit more, and how could parents actually use it as a resource?
Well, see, so the TUIs in the workbooks that we've created, so there's different sections to the workbook. So for instance, when you first get in, there's some basic recall questions. So depending on the age of the child, so there's an activity workbook that goes with the TUI resource. There's a section there that's called Can You Remember? So it's basic recall. So mum or dad might sit with the child and say, hey, can you remember what was happening when Marita said this? And so the child actually just watches the video and, they just sort of have this conversation. And so in this way, the child and the parent have the conversation. Mum and dad know the answer because we kind of give the answers. But then when they're watching it, they're engaging and they're having an opportunity just to talk about what the child is watching. And really, it's really getting mums and dads to journey with their child in it. So you've got basic recall questions, can you remember? And then you've got a little bit more of those ones where it's more reflective. Do you think that? And so there's those sorts of questions that sort of lead more. And then depending on the age of the child, mum and dad pick in the book, the level that they pitch at. So there's a section there that's who said this and why. Now, amidst all of these questions, there's coloring in pages, there's puzzles, there's a family kind of activity section there, so that mum and dad can do, put into practice the what they've watched on the video, and put into practice that particular fundamental. They might do a family challenge in that area, in the community or just amongst themselves. And there's also, if they wanted more, they can go into a discovery Bible reading. I noticed you had Jochebed on earlier, with the bookmark Bible study stuff that she's been doing for kids. So the discovery Bible reading actually follows that same model of asking those key 5 questions of what's new that you find. And so, we're modeling really for children how to get into the Word. And it's in a worship format, so mom and dad are involved with their child. Sorry, Alex, your turn.
Oh, no, that's all right. I've just...
It's all right. This show is all about kids. What will we be, a show focused on kids without a kid on the show?
I know, right? Hey, Hudson, who's your favourite character on the TUIs?
Jenna.
Character?
Because he put a bug spray in his eyes.
I guess for me as a parent, it's kind of made me rethink television. It's made me rethink screen time, especially preparing for this show. It's really made me rethink because I think there's the opportunity for us to use these shows as springboards and to use them as an opportunity. I know, Litiana, you and I were speaking earlier this week, and it kind of made me start rethinking. And there's this opportunity I think we have, even in what you've done with the TUIs, to help us then model that for all of media consumption. How can we either co-watch with our kids or come alongside and use those as opportunities to ask questions and take these fundamental beliefs, but these ideas that we live by, and insert them in life. So I think, I guess one of the questions parents might have is, how do I even have a spiritual conversation with my kid? Like, do I just bring it up? But I think maybe from the TUIs, you've created that platform to be able to start that conversation.
We pray so. I mean, we were quite deliberate in the way that we designed the questions and the way we designed the workbook, because there's an actual process that you go by where you just have basic recall to actually going more in depth, and then there's the segments there where there's even just stuff. I mean, like kids might enjoy, if they're younger, they might not be able to write out a response. They might want to draw a picture, or they might color in, or there's music that can be played, in the home, which is about the actual fundamental, So my writer of the resource is Sarai Vafanua Stevens. Now, what she's done, I mean, Alex and I put together the format in the way we wanted the resource written. And what she's done is she's gone and she's researched it and found it. And what I need to clarify is that because the resource comes from the South Pacific Division, it actually caters right across the division. So for those who may be living in, the Guabaks of Kiribati, to those who are living in inner city Melbourne, this resource, we pray that you receive the resource in the way that it's written so that it can be used and adapted to where you are living, because we deal with such a diversity of people and families and communities. So the resourcing is done in a way so so if you're living in the city, you may be able to go and do these things. But if you're living in a village, you may be able to go outside and look up at the stars and talk about creation, and then come back and draw a picture or draw it in the sand. And, this is the way that the resource is done so that it includes everybody that's within our part of the world. Yeah.
I appreciate that as well. I just want to clarify for people, when you go on the website, you'll watch the video, and you might,
yes,
as we do, we binge watch. So your kid might be like, I want to watch the next one. But as a parent who has a kid like that, who wants to just watch the next one and says, hey, mom, the camping episode, I want to watch that one. Just scroll down a little bit, and there's a bar where you can actually download that resource. And it's the workbook that Lydiana is referring to that goes along with those episodes.
Thank you, Rachel.
I'm just saying, as a parent who's actually been there, done that like, scroll down, don't let your kid keep skipping over to the next one. But even if they do, kids love watching them over and over again as well. I'm just wondering,
which one's your favorite one, Rachel?
My favorite, personally. Oh, that's a good question, Alex. I didn't realize you're going to be asking me questions. Actually, I like one of the last ones where they were going with the cliff, because it was full of adventure.
Alice Cash?
Yeah, because it was so different from all the other ones. It was like, there was like suspense and music and everything. So yeah, that was one of my favorites. I'm just wondering if you ladies can give us probably this last piece of advice, which is how can parents, and it's been the question we've been going throughout today, how can parents create that space for those meaningful conversations, not just watching the TUIs, but just in life and in general? How can we create space for those, whether it's through online content or just in-person content, like living together in person?
Alex, do you want to go first?
For me, I think it's time, giving them just time in this day and age, particularly just rush, and just go. But just that time. And I'm sure there's some statistic or resource that's backed up this, but just time. Hey, sorry. Just
It's all good. I love it. This is probably my favorite part of the show.
I guess building on what Alex is saying with time, I think often to have those spiritual conversations with the kids, I think mums and dads need to remember they need to go from what is known to what is unknown. So what the child is actually experiencing in a daily life, they talk about that and then they build on that, because that's how learning takes place. We can't just introduce something randomly from somewhere. So let's say, for instance, we're talking about health. We wouldn't just start talking about a fundamental. We talk about maybe how, when you eat an apple, healthier, you feel a bit better, you have more energy. And then we build on that a little bit more, you know. And that's when you're watching, you know, Dragon Master. I mean, that's what it's called, but it's about the health fundamental, you know. So you build from something that the children are experiencing and living within, and then build on that. But yeah, I think mums and dads, you know, we talk about the idea that and the real truth that children are a gift from the Lord, and they help shape us and mold us as parents. But you know what? The Lord is there to also help mums and dads to do this job. They're not alone. And, you know, all our role is that what Alex and I do is we put together a resource like this with a team of people, with Adam Kavanagh at the Media Center and, you know, everyone else that has worked on it. We put it together so that it blesses and supports the work of mums and dads. You know, it's not to replace them. It's there to support them and encourage them. And if we can help in any way, if they could give us feedback, that's what we're here for. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I like this idea that you're saying of, you know, using what's known to then take the kids to what's unknown. So I think that's a really great principle. And I think with this show, what we wanted to do was we realized we're talking often about the online space. So we do want to talk about those resources, but also talk about how we can, you know, use those then to have those meaningful conversations. So I want to also acknowledge it. Your resources that you're creating are now being translated into French, into
French, Fijian, Samoan, Tongan, and Talk Pidgin. As we speak right now, in 2 weeks' time, the people at Hope Channel in Fiji will be translating it into Fijian, do the voiceovers, and that will be the first place that we'll start to get it done into Fijian. The workbooks are translated already into Fijian. And so, yeah, we really praise the Lord, and I thank the Lord for Alex, my DA, who has been actively working and getting all of that stuff sorted for us. But yeah, we've got translators on the ground who are doing that. And, you know, so it'll be a great thing also in terms of us sharing the skill set with our counterparts within the Pacific. Because what happens now is what Fiji Mission or Fiji now gets a cartoon that they're speaking in Itoke language. You know, that will happen for Tonga Mission, that will happen for Samoa Mission, and will happen for PNG-UM, and will happen for Tahiti and New Caledonia as well in the French Quarter. So we're really grateful that we have the opportunity for this season to do this for the church.
Well, I want to thank you from my family, since my son personally likes it. But I hope that all the children enjoy it as much, and parents and churches see it as a resource to create those bridges, to have those conversations. So thank you for the work that you're doing in this space, and may it continue to bless many homes and many families from here going forward.
Thank you for having us here too.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to Hudson as well. That's his name, right? He provided a good reprieve for us, so thank you.
Yeah, praise the Lord, Hudson.
All right, see you later, ladies. So our last guest is definitely not least at all. He's a giant in the space of children's ministry, and is constantly advocating for the voices of children, for the hearts of children, making sure that we continue to put children at the forefront of ministry that we're doing in the church. And I'm excited to welcome Pastor Darren Pratt from North New South Wales Conference onto the Adventist Church Online Network broadcast. And I'm happy to sit at your feet and learn from you, because I have a 4-year-old. So tell me, I'm right in that window, 4 to 14. I know that's the one you fight for all the time.
That's my son. Good to hear, Rachel. And you've got road noise because I'm on my way back from the middle of our conference at Armidale, travelling back to Cooranbong. So I am on the side of the road tuning in. But I've loved the show. So many creative people you've interviewed today.
Oh, praise God for what they're doing. Yeah. I just am really excited because I know this is a space that you advocate in, you're very passionate about. And thank you for pulling over to the side of the road. That's another show of your dedication to this space and this ministry. I hope you're in a safe place on the side of the road.
I'm not driving. I am pulled over and the car is stopped and turned off and all those things. I had a pair of goslings in the car that were making noise, so they're outside the car now, just in the grass there.
You have goslings.
Story. Armidale was so fantastic because they're limited to 30 people in the church at the moment. So today they wanted to have the children and the families there. So the old people went out and watched it in the hall and allowed the children and families to be in the church to experience the church service. And I made a balloon tractor, a John Deere
Wow.
tractor, and told the story to the children and the parents through the use of creativity and balloons. And what I noticed was that Armidale has a time for testimony every single Sabbath morning. And today, it's been going now for the last 2 years. Today, children and parents were both testifying alongside each other. And it was just so exciting to see children having a voice in their sanctuary. So, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I don't know, as you're talking and I'm just looking at the threads that God has been weaving through this show, and I think it's really that kids have so much more to say than what we give them credit for. Jesus said that the kingdom belongs to them. So I think we have so much to learn from kids. Maybe first you can just kind of explain why it is you advocate so hard for this 4 to 14 age window, and why you're so passionate about the church really putting its efforts in that area.
Oh, how much time we got? Yeah, what I want to say quickly is that children are more likely to make a decision. In fact, anybody is more likely to make a decision for Jesus before they reach the age of 14. 85% of people who make a decision will do it in that window from the ages of 4 to 14. And so it makes sense for us to invest in that. But also, we lose half of our children by the age of 18 at a minimum. And so while 85% make a decision, the church is losing them at the same time. And I don't like that idea. When I had my 2 children, and they're both now young adults, but I asked myself the question, which one of those 2 did I want to lose from the church? Because the stats still going to lose one of them.
Wow.
And I was selfish. I said none of them. I want to grow both my children to know, love, and adore the Lord. So I guess I came to this ministry a little bit selfishly, in that I want my 2 in the kingdom. And if I take a few extra children on that journey, then so be it. So all my creativity and all of my preaching and all of my my work is to make sure that my 2 are in the kingdom with me.
Praise God. I know that you use, and you mentioned it a bit earlier, you made that John Deere tractor, and you talked about creativity, and we've actually seen that as a thread through today, is that creativity has been what each person has kind of brought to the table. How do you think that creativity plays a role in us being able to create spaces for these meaningful conversations with children?
God is a creative God, number one. I mean, look at what he's created around us. And so we need to remember that he is a creative God. But what I'm finding, especially during the COVID shutdown, with the digital space especially, which has come into its own with children especially, using digital space, I think that God's preparing us for something like this. But creativity and the creative arts, they seem to be able to be used in the digital medium very, very well, and they don't lose any of their meaning. If anything, they gain meaning in this digital space. And I'm the balloon man, of course, in my other world, and I find that I'm getting more demand now for doing balloons in the creative space and online never before, because it carries across well. And I've been sent photos of children in classrooms who are glued to the screen watching Pastor Darren do a balloon, more so than if I was live in the classroom. And
Wow.
there's something about the media and technology and children. I mean, they're almost born with it in their hands. They know what to do with it. I mean, if you want to fix your phone, you ask a 10-year-old and they're able to fix your phone for you. So they love digital space, but also they love creativity and they love stories. And I think that what we're seeing today in your interviews is that combining those into one space is something powerful, a powerful medium to pass on the things of God to our children.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. And I think it seems as though we're also empowering people. So like, what are you creative with? What do you have in your hand? What's your talent? What can you bring to the space that can engage kids, and then use it as a springboard for conversations to be able to start those conversations?
Anything. The Lego, fantastic idea with that Lego. I love Lego, and it's so creative what they're doing there. Over 20 years ago, I was showing one balloon dog, not knowing that will become a powerful ministry. It's now seen right around the world through our digital media, through balloon creativity. And And God's using that in a powerful way to now reach children that I'll never know. I can't walk through an airport now after without someone saying, "There's the balloon man, the balloon man." The kids drag the parents, say hello. I don't know them, but they know the balloon man, just because I allowed God to use what was placed in my hand, which was how to make a balloon dog. And now I'm making John Deere tractors today.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I'm impressed with that. Pastor Darren, I know that you said that there were 5 things that parents are really kind of looking for in this age when we're far away from each other, but they're still looking for some sort of connection. I know you have these different points of things that parents are still looking for, families are looking for. Would you mind sharing some of those with us?
Yeah, these not just questions, I think, for families and children, that's important, but also questions for churches to ask. And I think it sums up what we've been talking about today in your show with Jochebed and the Tuies and the Lego and all of those. I think this sums up really well, these 5 questions. And it really is for our children. How do we move our worship from performance or a talking head to shared togetherness in worship? That's number 1, shared togetherness. We're not just about a talking head, we're about worshiping together. And I think that some of those things you talked about help move to that space. Number 2, how do we move from rows and pews to family community? How do we move from rows and pews to family community? Some churches I know right now are moving their pews out and are putting tables into their space so that people can be together more around tables. And I love that idea. Also, of course, the lounge room type of idea comes into effect there. Number 3, how can we help, and this has been demonstrated today, how can we help all those who come to worship to encounter God? Do we just tell our children to sit there and be quiet, or to watch what mum and dad are doing online and be quiet? How do we engage everyone in worship that encounters God? Number 4, in what ways, and again, this has come through today very clearly, in what ways can we include multi-sensory experiences and the arts in our worship? I mean, God is a creative God, and sitting there and listening to someone drone on, I'm a preacher, don't worry, I love preaching, but if it's just sitting to someone drone on, then I think that that's not, in my opinion, true worship. True worship is multi-sensory and lots of experiences, and using the arts in worship as well, all sorts of different arts, as we've seen today. And finally, how can we include all generations in all aspects of our worship, both online and in present, including the preaching component? So they're the 5 questions that I think we all need to think about. And I think today has really heightened what can happen, put some of those things into practice.
And what are your thoughts around those questions as it relates, especially to the environment that we're in right now, that digital space? How have you seen churches kind of asking and answering these questions, even not being present at church?
I saw one church, they do what they call the long table, and basically they put their screens up on the table for their lunch, and they had the haystacks, and the families are connected through the screens, and they're talking to each other. And they put up photos of their table with their screens in the middle and the haystacks, and yeah, it's creating community, and the kids love it to be able to connect like that. So yeah, those sorts of meals together is one powerful way. I've seen others, Sabbath schools, being able to use some of the online quizzes, and there's so many good online quiz type programs that are able to connect the kids in the quiz time during Sabbath school time together. So some of those online quiz type technology, very powerful in connecting families together, but also giving the children the time to talk and be a part of that as well. It's not just headphones on mum and dad, but make sure you've got the child, like we had Alex's child earlier. Make sure they feel like they are involved, because if the children feel like they belong, they're more likely to stay. And I think that the digital technology side of things is very powerful in creating belonging to our children, because they understand it better than we do. And allowing them to help control the technology and use the technology and create using that technology creates to them that, hey, we value you, you've got something to offer here, and you belong. And if they feel like they belong and that worship is for them too, they're more likely to stay. So yeah, some of those type experiences where they can feel like they're a part of it, and whether it's a meal or something online that they're involved in as well.
I feel like you have so much wisdom in this space. I'm wondering if you can share how you think that if parents are looking for, how can I create that space for these meaningful conversations with my kids? What are a few things you think they can do to set themselves up for those meaningful conversations? And they can be spiritual and non-spiritual conversations.
Yeah, it's identifying the God moments, and they occur regularly, and helping our children identify those is powerful. Things like the TUIs, as we talked about earlier, powerful in asking some of the what questions and the I wonder questions. The I wonder questions, ones we need to ask to create learning and thinking and application. And also then to ask the I wonder question and to stop and listen. Often we want to jump in and get the answer. But to be able to stop and listen and allow the child to answer the question, and it might be something that really humbles and teaches us as well. Like Jesus says, the kingdom belongs to children. I think he's onto something there, and that children are, we are co-learners, if you like, alongside our children in learning what the kingdom's all about. So I'm thankful for things like the TUIs and for King's Kids, and for even some of those bookmarks that Jochebed's doing. Those sorts of things create the environment for asking the I wonder and the what if questions, and often using digital content can spark that conversation. It's not just the content, it's them being able to pause it and then engage in the conversation, which is powerful. And if parents are in the same space as their children, then we all learn something.
I think that's so empowering what you've said right there, Pastor Darren, is because as a parent, I get the same parent guilt, like, oh my goodness, my kid's watching all this stuff. But I realize there's power in pausing the show and talking about what we've just watched and what happened with the character and why did they do that? Was that the right thing? Or what do you think? Yeah. So I think that's empowering, because we often have the discussion about screen time versus no screen time, but it might be actually, what are we doing with that screen time? How are we using those moments to springboard into conversation that's
and
creating
there's so
interaction?
much research around how bad some of the stuff on the screens can be, but the same research I'm reading says that if parents were but engage in conversation around what they just saw, whether it was good or bad, but particularly bad, it reduces the effects of that content significantly, in the damage it does, and it turns it into a learning experience. So I think the answer is, in the digital space, parents need to journey with their children in that space and have that conversation along the way, which is what the Bible's all about, is the along the way conversation. And the digital space is just as powerful for that.
I think I know this is something that I spoke with you about, and in preparing for this show, I actually spoke with Julie Westlake, who was previously at South Pacific Division, and I think both of you mentioned this idea. So I wanted to probably end our interview on this thought, because it must be important. I think both of you mentioned this Acts 2 model of doing life together, and what does that mean, and how is that important for us now in the digital space as we're journeying with our children and even journeying with one another?
Yeah, the digital space is part of life, not going away. We can't just put it one side and say that we're not going to watch it or be involved, because, as I said, kids are born with it. Along the way, the Acts 2 type model of doing it together. Also, Deuteronomy chapter 6 says it well: when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. That includes the digital space, and it's journeying together and embracing together and being partners in this. And children pick up the values and pick up the learning in the rituals of life, the rituals and the rhythms, and the digital space now is a part of that. And I think it is journeying together in those rhythms and the rituals and the things that we create every day in our life. That's where Jesus takes meaning. It's not necessarily at church. It's parents journeying with their children, which pass on values, pass on belief, and the research says passes on lasting, lifelong faith.
Praise God. I'm wondering if on that note, you wouldn't mind ending us with a word of prayer and just, I think, praying for our churches, our leaders, and our parents as we're working to create spaces for these meaningful conversations with our children.
I will, and thank you, Rachel, what you're doing too in this space. I guess I'm an admirer of yours in what you're doing and how you are, I guess, collating and I guess you're curating this space. So God bless in all you're doing too and your family. Let's pray.
Oh, praise God.
Loving Father in heaven, thank you for Rachel and for what she's creating here, but thank you for what we watched today, the journey that we've been on, listening to people who are doing creative things in the digital space to engage our children and their families. You said that the kingdom belongs to children. You placed a child in the center, and so unless you become like this child, you're not going to make it. And in this day and age with COVID and the shutdown and the things that happened this year, placing children in the center and listening to them and journeying with them is just as powerful, if not more powerful. So I pray for the creatives, I pray for the creators, but I pray for us as families that we will journey together, that we will talk along the way, that we will eat together, that we will watch together, that we will listen together, that we will question together, and in so doing, pass on lifelong values and faith that will stick and rebound down to eternity. So we give this space to you, we give our children to you, we give our families to you, and we ask you to continue to bless us as we journey together, as we pray in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for all you're doing. And I want to thank all of our guests for being on today. And I want to especially thank Adrian Webster because he really was so instrumental in helping today's show come together in a really big way. And I want to say a personal thank you to you. So until next time, when we see you on the Adventist Church Online Network broadcast, we're hoping that you are able to create meaningful conversations or space for meaningful conversations with your children and listen to what they have to say, because today we found out that children have some pretty amazing things to teach us. So until next time, see you later.